look at homelessness and substance abuse together, and it brings on mental health issues. It did with me. When I was homeless, I first got diagnosed with PTSD and depression and anxiety disorder. You know, I grew up in a family where that's just, you were weak. My dad would tell me that I was weak if I said I was depressed. Go out and do something. That's the way that I was raised. So I didn't think that until this one day when I just felt like I seen these guys. They had a wood chipper and they were throwing these branches in there. It was going, yeah, and I just imagined myself running over there and just jumping in. It's a terrible thought. I never wanted to feel like that again. So sometimes that's kind of the feeling that you get when you're homeless and you don't get the care that you need. You begin not to care. I first started experiencing some brief episodes of homelessness about 2005 or 2006. I had been in construction. I was a general contractor for a while, union carpenter for many years, and I was finding that the industry had changed a lot. When I was making $38 an hour as a union carpenter, all of a sudden I was finding myself working under the table for $10, $12 an hour. A lot of us guys from the union had to do it just in order to survive. So anyways, that was kind of difficult for me. And so I started experiencing some brief episodes of homelessness. And right about that time as well, I started doing meth. And that was not a good thing. So by 2011, I'd probably had about half a dozen of the brief episodes. Some lasted only maybe a week, sometimes maybe 3 or 4 months. But I finally just threw my hands up and just said, that's it. And in 2011, the place to go in Orange County was the Santa Ana Civic Center. And at that time, there was no one out here. There was a few people that were living in the tunnels and stuff like that, but there was no presence out here at all at the riverbed. Anyhow, so I was feeling kind of, helpless and homeless at the time, and there was no services, no outreach whatsoever coming out to the Civic Center. And the amazing thing is that every day you'd see the folks that worked in the buildings. They would come by and they're dressed up in their suits and their briefcases and so forth, and in the morning they'd park their car and they'd go up to their office and probably look out the window and see the homelessness out there all day, and then wade back through it in the afternoon and go back to their car and go home to their nice family, and have a great evening. But there wasn't a lot being done for the homeless, so there was a group of us that got together. We call ourselves the Civic Center Roundtable. Basically, it was homeless people that met every week, and we discussed the needs, welfares, and concerns of the community. And eventually, we ended up going to Santa Ana City Council and regarding them taking our property, confiscation of property, personal property, and so forth. And so we went to bat with them. So that was like in 2013, and I've been kind of an activist ever since. Nowadays, I'm not so much on the end of doing outreach as much anymore. I'm more of a policy guy. I look for policy solutions to homelessness that are both beneficial to people experiencing homeless and also to the communities that are impacted by homelessness. So that's what I'm doing these days. Recently, this year, I was sworn in as a commissioner for the City of Anaheim Housing and Community Development Commission. And also, I'm working on Hope for Restoration, which is my nonprofit venture. We're actually in about a couple weeks going to be electing officers and adopting bylaws for that. So we're in the incorporation process right now. But really, it's been a project of mine for about the last 3 years. And it was just a way for me to do a couple of things. First of all, to bring the necessary, to fulfill the needs of the homeless community, but also to establish a standard for the way that nonprofits administer to them, and maybe like for instance, in my bylaws, I've written in that 1/3 of the board has to be people that have previously homeless experience. So that means a lot to me, because when we empower homeless people, well, we empower the entire community. Also, in the future, when we hire employees, there'll be 1/3 of employees at this point. We may change that someday to be even more. But that's what we want, is to set a standard for other organizations to make sure that they're spending more money actually gets to the homeless than it does on administering to them, which we see a lot of. The county has what's called a 10-year plan. It's a plan that cities and counties give to the federal government in order to receive funding. So since 1996, the County of Orange has received over $250 million against homelessness. Now, in that time, in those 20 some odd years, we've seen the numbers increase exponentially. So whatever they've been doing in the past hasn't worked, and what they've done with the money, we don't know. We just now recently got our first year-round shelter from the county at Bridges Kramer Place, and that just opened up in May. They do. I hear from time to time. I hear people say, "Well, there's hundreds of beds available," but it's not necessarily so. When you go online, you can get a list of 100 shelters, it'll say. But if you start calling them, you'll find out that it's not quite as simple as just picking somebody up and taking them there and having a bed that night. Sometimes there are programs and there's requirements and so forth. That's difficult because I'm looking at these folks here today, and I'm thinking that if they aren't able to do something on their own, that they're not going to get the help they need for maybe even a couple of years. Maybe the most frail, might get into supportive housing, permanent supportive housing, based on their disability. But there's others that are, borderline disabled. Look at homelessness and substance abuse together, and it brings on mental health issues. It did with me. When I was homeless, I first got diagnosed with PTSD and depression and anxiety disorder. And I grew up in a family where that's just you were weak. My dad would tell me that I was weak if I said I was depressed. Go out and do something. But that's the way that I was raised. And so I didn't think that until this one day when I just felt like I seen these guys. They had a wood chipper and they were throwing these branches in there. It was going, yeah, and I just imagined myself running over there and just jumping in. It's a terrible thought. I never wanted to feel like that again. So That's sometimes that's kind of the feeling that you get when you're homeless and you don't get you don't get the care that you need. You begin not to care, and when you don't care about yourself, then that's a long downhill slide from there. Look, I understand and I apologize for what's going on here, okay? But there's a lot going on here I think that the public doesn't know about, and it could have a large effect on them in the future, and that's the disparity in the wage gap. A lot of people and the affordability of housing and wages is just way too wide of a gap. I'm working on putting together a jobs program because that's what everybody in the community says. Hey, get a job, right? Okay, so I'm thinking, hey, well, that's a good thing. But even so, I'll be able to get maybe a $10 an hour job or something like that, and make themselves useful. But that's not going to be a solution either. But it could be a step in the right direction. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and do it. But I want to make sure that if I do that I'm going to there'll be a way for them to access better jobs in the future. I know that that the funding has been well in the past, and probably doesn't look so good in the future. Right now, with the current administration, I know there's a lot of cuts for HUD, which means housing. So they're going to have to be a little more prudent with the money that they get, and there may have to be an investment, from a general fund or something. They may have to dig into their pockets on this one. My ultimate goal right now is I've been sponsoring the annual event for National Homeless Persons Memorial Day. It's held every December 21st in about 175 different cities, and it's held on the winter solstice because it's the shortest day of the year, but it's the longest night for the homeless. So they call it the longest night. Now this year, I'll be having the event at two different venues at Santa Ana Civic Center area. There'll be a big event down there with a march and everything, and then we're going to come right back out here. Right here is where we held the event last year, and this fence right here, my wife and I sat up the night before, and we cut tombstone cards. You'll see the pictures on the website, and we put the name of each person. We got a list from the coroner, and we attached them to this fence all the way down to about here from the end there, and there was 178 of those cards. So when people walked up and they would ask, what is the cards? And I would just tell them that each one of those is the name of a person that passed away in 2016. So and they go, wow, that's a lot. And so that's kind of the purpose of the event. Also, is a community awareness event. People need to know that there's going to be people that die and they won't have homes. So that's December 21st. Like I say, two venues. It's going to be a big thing. We're just now starting to advertise it a little bit. So folks could go to my website at hope4restoration, the number 4 restoration.org, and fill out a form there. On every page just about there's a volunteer button. You just click on that and you'll get on a mailing list, and there'll be opportunities for volunteers to be in the planning process now, and those that have little time to spend would like to spend their time volunteering at the event itself. We can we'll keep them on the list, and as many people that would want to help as possible, and we could use donations at that time. I don't want to have them now because I don't have a place to put them, but yeah, it's that's December 21st, and it's called The Longest Night and National Homeless Persons Memorial Day.